Hello and welcome back to the course Helicopter Flying. In this lesson we'll try a very basic autorotation. Now, autorotation is a condition where the rotors are not turned by the engine but by the airflow. And this of course you'll need after an engine failure, so you use the airflow during the descent to actually keep your rotors turning. And this will give you enough energy and RPM so that you can actually do a decent touchdown, even when the engine has quit. The main thing to keep in mind during autorotation is to keep your rotor RPM. If it gets too low at some point, you might not be able to recover it. And that will be catastrophic. So there are three important points to really keep in mind during an autorotation, and that is your rotor RPM, your touchdown spot, and your airspeed. Now the touchdown spot, of course it's best if you have already selected this before the engine failure, so during just normal flying, always keep a lookout for nice clear areas where you could autorotate if the need arises. Because you can see here the terrain is pretty difficult, a lot of trees, obstructions, well, water, but there is this one little airstrip, so if I know about its position, then this will definitely help me when I have the actual engine failure. Now during your autorotative descent, you can control engine RPM with the collective. So you pull collective to reduce the RPM and you lower the collective to increase it. You could need to reduce rotor RPM during a turn, for example, because during a turn the load factor will increase, so also the rotor RPM will increase. And you might need to pull collective so that it doesn't get too high, actually. Just try to keep it in the green of the gauge. The first steps, if you notice the engine failure, and you will notice it of course by noise but also by a left yaw, is to add right pedal, to immediately lower the collective and pull back on the cyclic to have a gentle flare to restore or actually keep this rotor RPM. And then during the autorotative descent, you constantly check three things. That's the rotor RPM, that's your airspeed, and your touchdown spot. Will I be able to make it? Now for a normal autorotation, you'll fly at 70 knots, or maybe 65 to 70. If you need more distance, so I mean if you come out too high, well, you can fly S-turn, so even a full 360. Now, if you need more glide distance, you will fly a maximum glide autorotation, and that will be the topic of another lesson. So today we'll just fly a normal autorotation. And we will be lucky because we have an airstrip at our disposal. So I'll just cut the fuel then, and we'll do a real autorotation with a real engine failure, because we're just in a simulator, so nothing bad can really happen. Not many flight schools teach autorotations until the ground, so including the landing. Most terminated in a hover. But here in the simulator, we have the big advantage that we cannot really damage or hurt something or someone, so we'll just do it to a landing. Now concerning that landing, at approximately 40 feet, you'll start a gentle flare. And this flare is there to increase rotor RPM again, so you have enough energy in the rotor system for touchdown. And at roughly 8 feet above ground, you stop that flare, so you push the cyclic forward to level the helicopter, to ensure that you touch down in a level attitude, because otherwise the tail could strike the ground. And then you cushion the landing with collective. Now, if you have the space available, no obstructions in a flat area, I would recommend to touch down with a little bit of forward speed, because that's actually no problem if the terrain is flat, and the helicopter will be much more stable. Okay, so we are still flying around our little airstrip, unsuspecting of anything bad. Okay, so I will now simulate an engine failure by switching off the fuel. Just remember the first 3 points: lowering collective, pulling back on the cyclic, and applying right pedal. Okay, so 3, 2, 1. Okay, I've done just that. Now reducing the speed to 70, and I'm also turning towards my intended landing spot, which is the airstrip just below. Now in the turn I have to watch my RPM, maybe pulling a bit collective if it gets too high. Okay, here's my runway. Reducing speed. And now always keep those 3 things in mind: airspeed, rotor RPM, and your landing area. Always auto-rotate into the wind, I mean land into the wind, because landing with a tailwind is really tough. Alright, we may be a bit high, so I'm doing an S-turn, keeping my rotor RPM in mind during the turn. Now in 40 feet I'll start a flare, and in roughly 8 or 10 feet I will level the ship and then land or cushion the landing with collective. Okay, coming in at quite a good speed, bit fast. Rotor RPM is good. So 40 feet flare, flare, flare. Level the ship and apply some collective. And touch down with a bit of forward speed, that's fine. Okay, seems we made it. Let's have a look at the replay. Okay, this is the outside view. We are now on final approach. I'll start my flare. I have to say that the R44 in the simulator floats much more than the one in real life, so the flare is much longer than it would actually be. So now I level the helicopter and apply some collective and land with forward speed. The nose was a bit low on touchdown, so I actually leveled the ship too much. But otherwise, well, I think we can walk away from this landing. Hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I'll see you next time when we'll talk about advanced auto rotations.